When it comes to the many characters that are featured throughout all of One Piece, there are those that I have a significant interest in that weighs more to me than it would for others, and there's a good chance that those characters end up being my favorites during the course of the story. Normally that comes down to their debut, how they present themselves, and what they are capable of that garners my attention from the jump. It's no kept secret when it comes to my history with Jewelry Bonney that she is very high on my list of those who I look forward to see their character be explored, even more so now that we are in the final saga of the manga, and with her being a part of the Egghead arc along what's been revealed and hinted at thus far, we are due to get the origins behind a character who could have a significant role to play in the last major phases of the story. And it's not only her that's in the spotlight, the former warlord and Revolutionary Army member Bartholomew Kuma has found himself tied up in all of this, a father and daughter torn apart by the corruption of the ones who control the world. It's time to talk about the origins of Bonney and Kuma, the Sorbet Kingdom's forgotten royal family, and the tragedy that befell them and their homeland. Let's go. During the Reverie arc, I had made a video discussing some of the things we learned about regarding the potential connections between Bonney and Kuma, the world government, and the value of Bonney's devil fruit. Now is the perfect time to piece together the origin story that awaits us. If you want to see the discussion video from like 4 years ago to get a brief recap of what we talked about in there will be a link at the end of the video directing to it. I feel like this was long overdue to make a follow-up video involving Jewelry Bonney and Bartholomew Kuma at some point, and now is the right time to delve much further into this discussion. So let's focus on the present. Bonney is currently alongside the Straw Hats at Egghead Island, the territory under the control of the mad scientist known as Dr. Vegapunk. Ever since the events of post-Marineford, Bonney has been in search of him, who we now know to be Dr. Vegapunk, as she is seeking answers for what happened to her father that led to him becoming a mindless cyborg under the control of the world government, her father being the former ruler of the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue, Bartholomew Kuma. The Reverie arc had hinted at some type of connection between Bonney and Kuma, even going as far back as Marineford to when Bonney was crying during the broadcast. Many people weren't sure if it was for Whitebeard, who she admired a lot, Ace, a fellow up-and-comer in the pirate world, or someone else entirely. Yet the answer to that speculation was in fact to be Kuma. So now that we know that Bonney is the daughter of Kuma, what is the history between them? Well, they are family, that's pretty clear, but what led to them being apart? There happens to be a huge hint from what Jinbei says in chapter 1064 that provides the background needed to explore it. Kuma was formerly the ruler of the Sorbet Kingdom, a nation inhabited in the South Blue. During the tenure of his reign, he was viewed as a wicked king, and at some point his own people drove him away, leading Kuma to become a pirate. During the time that he was a pirate, he had become a member of the Revolutionary Army. Upon being captured by the Marines, he was then sentenced to life in prison. However, this would cause Dr. Vegapunk to take an interest in the former king. In exchange for his life sentence to be annulled, Kuma would be granted his freedom as a warlord. However, in return, he would become a part of the clone development research under Vegapunk, which we would later on find out would be the Pacifista series that we would see during the Sabaody arc. Jinbei had stated that for Kuma to receive a life sentence, what crimes and how many of them did he commit to earn the epithet of Kuma the Tyrant? Bonney in the midst of this was reflecting on the story, but once that part was brought up, she was upset and took her anger out on Jinbei, denying the accusations and stating that her father hated the world government. You know who else said the exact same thing that Bonney just said to Jinbei? Kuma's friend who is part of the Revolutionary Army, Emporio Ivankov. Iva had told Doflamingo during Marineford that he refused to believe Kuma would surrender himself to the people that he hates, and he also happens to be aware of Kuma's past as well, knowing that he was someone who used to sport a smile on his face when part of the Revs, the total opposite of what's been reflected about him from others on the outside of his circle. This should paint a picture we're so used to seeing with the world government, that at any time they say anything or do anything for that matter, lies will always be surrounded with them. And it's becoming clear that all these things about Kuma being told from others who don't know him couldn't be more far from the truth. Yet that does make us ponder for a moment. What is the truth about Kuma, and how does it involve Bonney along with her importance to the world government? The answers we seek could very well come in the form of what we saw happen to the Lelucia Kingdom in 1060, with its own spin thrown into the mix. It is very likely that the Sorbet Kingdom has been erased from the map in similar fashion to Lelucia roughly around 20 years ago before the main timeline, although instead of the island disappearing, it's more so those who live there that have vanished. Let's put the pieces to this puzzle together to make sense of what I'm building here, and the amount of information I've gathered to create the answers we seek to these questions could very well showcase how extensive the mind of Ichiro Oda really is. Let's start with the namesakes. We know that quite a few characters in the story are based on either real life figures, mythology, and even current famous people from our world. Kuma is based on two figures who share the same first name as him, the first of which is Bartholomew Roberts, known to be the most successful pirate of the golden age of piracy piracy. His infamy and success saw Roberts become known as the Great Pirate before being bestowed his own renowned epithet by all who knew him as Black Bart. He started off as a second mate on the slave ship Princess under Captain Abraham Plum. Later on, he was captured by Howell Davis, who he would serve under as his new captain. Roberts was a brilliant navigator and Davis took him under his wing, and when Davis died after an ambush against the Portuguese, he took over as the captain of the crew, and his first order was to exact revenge toward the Portuguese on the island of Principe. The first glimpses of his cruelty were displayed when he eradicated the male population of the opposition and stole all of their treasures. It was this event that cemented the crew, confirming their loyalty to the new captain, moving on from their previous leader. Roberts dominated the seas for 3 years, and in 1722 he would meet his end by a grape shot after an encounter with Chaloner Ogle and his ship swallowed during the Battle of Cape Lopez. So what am I trying to say here with Kuma and Roberts being connected just because they share the same first name? Well, they are pirates, so that's one thing. More importantly, the story that which they share is based on what the world government has told the world about Kuma, the tyranny of their rule and the actions that followed. Roberts was everything that Kuma is being depicted as, which shows the side that Oda is depicting using the world government as the source of information. Yet from what Bonney and Ivankov has stated previously, the world government could be covering up something far more sinister from their doings while using Kuma as a scapegoat. On to the other namesake that Kuma is based on. The name Bartholomew also comes from one of the 12 apostles of Jesus, known simply as Bartholomew the Apostle. Sounds pretty simple and less demanding of info than Roberts, right? Not really. This could provide the truth behind the lies from the world government that could explain who Kuma is, but more importantly, the importance of him, Bonney, and the group they are a part of by birth or affiliation. Bonney had stated to Luffy and his crew in 1064 that her father was from a special race of people, and that no matter what reasons Vegapunk had experimenting on him, what he did was murder in the name of science. I want to get this out the way because I can already see the links of him being a Lunarian. While I won't go out of my way to fully deny or brush off those links, because there is a chance that he could be one who had his wings clipped to prevent the world government from finding out of fear of enslavement, I'd find that to be a bit lackluster of a reveal. Don't get me wrong, if done right to showcase the further cruelty of the world government through Bonney and Kuma's past, this could turn out to be another moving backstory in the collection of Oda's catalog. What I would hope to see is Oda continue to do what he's done for 25 plus years, and that is to expand on his world building by tying in a new race that could be important to lifting the lid on the long kept secret that is the Void Century. I'm going on a limb to say that the race that Kuma is a part of could be someone with ties to the ancient kingdom from 800 years ago. For what we know, the celestial dragons are seen as the embodiments of heaven, the proclaimed gods of the One Piece world. Yet we know that they are more closer to the devil and his entourage of demons based on their actions up to this point. So could there be a chance that Kuma's race is far more closer to angels than devils? We know that Kuma carries with him a Bible wherever he goes, whether he's just a religious man or it has a deeper meaning. And if that meaning involves his race being that of angels or apostles to God, something tells me that this will have ties to the ancient kingdom in some shape or form. Now that we have the pieces in play, let's paint the story of Kuma, Bonney, and the tragedy that befell them and their former homeland. Many years ago, Kuma was the ruler of the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue. He was on bad terms with the world government, likely involving the heavenly tribute that is to be paid for protection. As Kuma stood up against them, his people felt that it was a battle not worth fighting anymore, and at some point, Kuma was removed as king and banished from his kingdom. As seen with most royal families that deal with coup d'etats, something of that ilk had to have occurred that led Kuma to being driven out of his home, and it would be safe to say that it led to the separation between himself and Bonney during this event. In the midst of all this, the world government had been informed of the events that took place in the Sorbet Kingdom. After being removed from power and having to fend for himself in the open seas with his daughter's status up in the air, Kuma had taken up the life of a pirate. He would then go on to become a member of the Revolutionary Army, serving under Monkey D. Dragon and forming a friendship with Ivankov. In a mission that backfired against him, Kuma was imprisoned by the world government. Before we continue, let's rewind the clock a bit to when Kuma was ousted from the Sorbet Kingdom, as we have to bring up the part of Kuma's epithet as the tyrant and how that was formed between his removal as king to his relationship with Vegapunk. When Kuma departed his homeland, a source of information about him has slipped through the cracks, through the means of spies, or better yet, someone working as a double agent for the world government. They learned about Kuma's race and that someone of that bloodline from the Void Century had remained alive. Even if Kuma himself wasn't directly involved in the 100-year blank period, the chances of him knowing information from that time are pretty decent. And to avoid any chance of Kuma's heritage being revealed to the open world, had instructed for the cleansing of the Sorbet Kingdom. However, instead of eliminating the island from existence, an another alternative came into play. They instead created a cover-up to use against Kuma in order to get him to work for them. As far as we are aware from what's been said in the story, the Sorbet Kingdom still stands, as Bonney posed as the queen of the island during the Reverie arc as Connie, which could validate its existence not being called into question. So how can Kuma have been given the epithet of tyrant when we know that it was a lie? The world government has simply done what they're known for doing and created their own truth in the form of a lie. To prevent a situation where the world is aware of the Sorbet Kingdom's disappearance and the death of King Kuma, the world government has sent either CP0 or a team of assassins to eliminate everyone that lived on the island. The crimes that befall to Kuma that got his epithet were by the hands of the people he bore a hatred for, and that hatred only intensified by the acts of his enemy. To make matters intensify, a bargaining chip was thrown into the mix. Vegapunk would meet Kuma to bargain with him to work under the mad scientist in exchange for his life sentence to be annulled. When Kuma had refused initially, the chip that would be used to change his stance would be the life of his daughter, Jewelry Bonney. I've been harping on this information for as long as I've been making videos about One Piece, and it's important for this part of the video regarding Bonney. Her character and her last name is based on the infamous pirate known as Anne Bonny. She was a former noble turned pirate who had ties to Calico Jack and Mary Reed during her piracy days. After Mary's passing in prison and Jack being hanged by the Navy, Bonnie's fate however had become a great mystery, and there's no record of her release that has led to speculation as to what became of her well-being. In ways this fits perfectly what happened to our Bonney after Marineford, when she was captured by Blackbeard only to be in the hands of the Marines and Akainu, who arrested her, and we were glad that she was back in their custody, only to then escape imprisonment and went into hiding after the time skip. It's even more likely now that Akainu might have had a role to play in the tragedy of the Sorbet Kingdom like he did at Ohara to Robin's homeland. As he echoed the world government's concerns about her disappearance and was glad to have possession of her again. Akainu could be aware of Bonnie's status as the former princess of the Sorbet Kingdom and her relationship to Kuma, and if he was involved in laying ruin to her homeland, it would make that interaction between them from pre-time skip even more personal on a revisit. Going back to Kuma, Vegapunk had told him that he had kept tabs on Kuma's child and swore that if he had worked under him for the Pacifista research, Bonnie's life would be spared. It wasn't that Vegapunk was doing this to spite him or control him. It was the only way to ensure Kuma was safe from the danger of him whilst also looking after his daughter. And to add to the mysterious connection between Vegapunk and Dragon, which would give Kuma an unlikely ally whilst in the custody of his enemies, Kuma knew in his heart that his daughter's life meant more to him than anything in the world, and a father is always willing to go to the next level to put his life on the line for his child, which is what Kuma did by accepting to work with Vegapunk and take the title of Warlord. His secret was kept intact to his ties of being from a special race, as that info would only be made known to Vegapunk and him only. You're probably asking yourself, why would Im allow for Kuma to live when they are an entity that doesn't want to disclose information about the Void Century to the world? The reason could be that they do not wish to lose the support of Dr. Vegapunk at the time, whose research is beneficial to retain the order of control that they have within the three great powers, along with what they can create that will benefit them in the long run. If Kuma's humanity were to be removed and become a mindless cyborg under the control of the world government, it would keep his secret heritage from being revealed to anyone outside of the world government, as he wouldn't be able to have control over himself to tell a soul of who he really is and the exploits of chaos the world government had caused long ago. And with Vegapunk already in their possession, Im can assure that no funny business could be played by the mad scientists under their watchful eye. However, that no longer seems to matter with Im at the moment, as CP0 had been sent to eliminate Vegapunk for learning too much information that could bring ruin to Im and the world government. We know that Kuma has been rescued by his comrades in the Revolutionary Army. Now that we know the connection between Dragon and Vegapunk, it could be the link that brings father and daughter back together. And the way things are panning out now, it's going to be up to Luffy and the Straw Hats to make sure that Bonney is able to reunite with Kuma. Another bonus that comes into this that would be something us fans of the series would want from a Bonney and Kuma reunion is the first time meeting between Luffy and Dragon. The chances of this meeting happening have now gone up significantly, and depending on how things pan out on Egghead Island, we could see that fateful encounter go down at long last. So this is how I envision the origin stories of Bonney and Kuma to go down based on the information Oda has provided us throughout the course of the story. Their time together in the Sorbet Kingdom, the tragedy they faced, and the path they had to walk before becoming a family again after all these years. It's likely that Oda would go in a different direction from this, but the elements that we've been given so far across the years that the story has been out, it was too good of an opportunity to miss out on cracking the code on the ties between my favorite girl outside of the Straw Hats and one of the best potentially written characters in the story in the form of Kuma. In due time, the truth will be revealed. Yet if what I talked about today is anywhere close to the answers we seek, Oda is about to showcase why he is in the prime of his career as an author by delivering a backstory for the ages like he's done before many times throughout the course of One Piece. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below regarding this discussion video involving Bonney and Kuma. Do you see this being anywhere close to being the actual backstory between these two? And if you have your own inputs, your own clarifications, anything you would like to add in regards to this, or anything in regards to your own story of how you see things panning out between these two characters, let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new here. If you want to be part of the weekly experience when it comes to my coverage of One Piece week in and week out, subscribe if you haven't already, click on the bell to stay up to date with everything that goes on the channel. And with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Commodore last signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care.